I better push record to the cloud since I wasn't recording then. So I'll say that all over again. Welcome to Monday, August 17th. Donna, our licensed acupuncturist, is going to talk about functional biomarkers. So what I'm going to do, Donna, is I'm going to put everybody on mute except you. I'm going to go back, yes, and I'm going to unmute you. So that you are clear, okay? Great. And then if anyone has questions, just please feel free to ask in the chat box. So as we go, you're going to learn, because I remember the first time I heard Donna talk about this, I had so many questions. So please put them in the chat box, because we could well get to those today. If we don't, we'll answer them on the Facebook page. So I'm going to hand it right over to you, Donna, to get started.
Okay, great. Well, in addition to being a licensed acupuncturist, I'm also certified in functional medicine. And so what I do as a functional medicine practitioner is I'm going to look at people's labs from a different perspective, more from a different range. And so, and it could take, the class just alone, it is over 8 hours just in functional blood chemistry. So what I did was I chose the markers to discuss today that I think are going to be the most interesting to you, especially during this week of summer slim down and what you might be seeing going on in your body. And so let me share my screen and get the slides going. There they are. I hope I have it in the right kind of view. I'm not an expert in this sort of thing.
I'll let you know.
I think what I'll do is I'll put it on the slideshow so it takes up the whole screen. Does that work for you guys? Let's see. There we go.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, beautiful. Great. So we're going to talk about functional blood chemistry. Now, when we talk about functional blood chemistry, I chose this photo specifically because I think sometimes what we do when we get our labs back from the doctor, we just look at, oh, everything fell in range, and then here, this might be high or this might be low. And we sometimes just look at one tiny marker all by itself. And it would be like if we looked at this forest and we looked at just a branch on one of these trees. That would be it. But when we back up and we look at everything and how it's interrelated, we see the whole forest. And so that's what functional medicine really does, is it looks at everything. Now, the markers that I'm going to go through today are glucose, A1C, your cholesterol, thyroid, and vitamin D. And you'll see that as I go through each one of them, they're going to be kind of related back to each other, and you'll get a better picture of how these kind of all fit together. And these are the most popular ones that most people get done on their labs. And so one of the things that I wanted to share with you is, how do you prepare to get your labs done, right? And sometimes we don't think about preparing our body to get our labs to get good results. So 2 to 3 days before the test, you have to consciously make sure you are well hydrated. If you show up, and I love how Judy's drinking water right now. If you show up dehydrated, you could throw off things like your total protein, your Bunn score, your albumin, things like that, that might show like something's wrong, but it actually relates back to being dehydrated. And definitely, if you're going to do your glucose and your cholesterol, you're going to want to be fasting for at least 8 hours. So that's just some tips on how to prep to make sure you get accurate results from your blood panel. Now, your glucose is, this is insulin, and it regulates your blood sugar, right? And so we're talking this week about getting our blood sugar levels in a more functional, optimal range. Your glucose should be between 75 and 86, and this is your fasting glucose. It's going to be completely different after you eat. Now, if you tend to have a fasting glucose higher than 100, between 100 and 125, that kind of can put you in a pre-diabetic range. It means that you're not handling your insulin properly. And when you have excess insulin, that promotes fat storage. So when your body eats, it produces insulin, and if it's not used as energy, it goes, okay, well, let's just store it, especially around the middle, in case there's a famine in the future. Because we have to remember that we really do have caveman DNA. I tell people that all the time. We are cavemen in our DNA, and our body is always programmed for survival. So another thing that can connect to your glucose levels are your adrenals and stress. That can raise your glucose. So say you have a nightmare and then you wake up, you test your glucose right after that nightmare and you're all kind of stressed and your heart's pounding, you're going to have higher glucose levels. For example, I had a kitty. It was one of my favorite kitties in the world. Her name is Katie. And she would get so stressed when we went to the vet that she would pee and poo and meow in the cage. It was a nightmare for me and for her. And every time we got there, her blood sugar levels were off the charts, and they kept saying, oh, she's a diabetic. And I said, no, she's not a diabetic. She's just really stressed. So eventually I had a vet come to the home and test her blood sugar levels or glucose, and she was perfectly normal. She wasn't stressed because she was in her home. And that's just an example of how stress can raise your glucose levels. And stress and cortisol can be connected to the adrenals. And you may have heard about the adrenals, and they're those little hat things that look like they're sitting on the tops of kidneys in your back. And they produce hormones that regulate your metabolism and your immune system and the stress response. And when your blood sugar levels are high, it can be a sign that you're stressing out your adrenals. A couple things you can do, as I have listed here, is your 4-7-8 breath. And many of you may know this, and it's something I do when I'm trying to calm down my mind, or I'm trying to fall asleep, or I'm just feeling stressed out. You inhale 4 through your nose, you hold for 7, and you exhale through your mouth for 8. You just do a couple of rounds of that, and what that does is it engages the parasympathetic nervous system. And when that's engaged, it tells your body you are safe, you're not stressed, you're not going to run from a saber-toothed tiger, whatever your body feels in that caveman stress zone. Because if you eat fast or you're in a stress mode, that's your sympathetic nervous system. And so that's your stress. And I like herbs like ashwagandha and ramania, or a couple of herbs that I use quite often to help regulate stress. So some things that you can do to help manage your glucose is things that you're learning this week. It's really good, right? You eat lots of veggies. You decrease your amount of fruit. People think that fruit is fine because it's fruit and it's a natural thing, but you have to remember that it is fructose and it will raise your blood sugar levels. So especially at this time of year, you can be eating berries. They're lower on the glycemic scale. Digestive enzymes help your glucose levels. Waiting 4 hours between meals and not grazing. I used to be such a grazer, especially when I was at the office, because I just scheduled patients all day long. I didn't take a break for lunch, and I would just like graze constantly. And eventually I just had to stop that. It was not working for my body. The other thing is just eat when you're hungry. Really check in with your body and figure out, am I hungry, or is this just a habit? And then also stress reduction and the herbs that can help reduce that. Glucose can often be increased, and that is an indicator of insulin resistance, but also your liver and fatty liver. A couple of herbs that I like to use if you're really having sugar metabolism issues or increased glucose. Gymnema is a great herb that I use, inositol and sensitol. And I'm going to mention some things, and if you have questions later, I'll be happy to tell you where to get these things, or if you want to know more about it. But there are some just basic herbal supplements out there that can really help if your diet is not managing it. Some people do have decreased glucose, and that can really be caused and affect the adrenals and your liver function, and also your thyroid, which we'll talk about later. Now, connected to glucose levels is your A1C. A1C is a test that shows your glucose levels in your red blood cell over the last 3 months. So it's kind of an indicator of, like, a glucose is just your snapshot. Where were you in that moment on that day? But A1C kind of gives you a bigger picture of what's been going on in your body for the last 3 months with glucose. And it's best to be less than 5.0. If it's greater than 5.0, that kind of puts you in a pre-diabetic stage, and anything over 6.5 ends up in a diabetic stage. Most people, if they're right around 5, that's when I start working with them to figure out how to reduce their glucose levels. And some things that you can do is eat a protein, a fat, and a carb at every meal and or snack. So Karen's going to be talking a lot about that this week of how to eat. And when I say a carb, I don't mean a piece of bread. That's not a carb. But more of something that is your protein and your fat is going to help you feel fuller longer, and it's also going to slow down the insulin response. And then no refined sugars and carbs. And often I'll also tell people to get off wheat or gluten in general, and that just helps reduce sugar overall, sugar consumption. So the next one I want to talk about is cholesterol. And people often, this is one of those ones where they look at just the branch and not the whole tree on the report. And they get really scared when it's over 200. And the optimal range is really between 180 and 220. Menopausal women need fat to produce estrogen, so you're going to have a little bit higher levels for menopausal women. The other thing that I want to let you know is the 200 number is actually an arbitrary number. It's not really science-based. One of my favorite books, if you're interested in cholesterol, there's a book called The Great Cholesterol Con, and it's by Malcolm Kendrick. And he looks at all the cholesterol studies and does a meta-analysis on them to actually come to some really interesting conclusions about cholesterol. And we do need cholesterol. Cholesterol is, when it's low, your body will produce more of it. And when it's high, your body will produce less of it. So your body is always working with this cholesterol balance. And when you're looking at cholesterol on the chart, when you get your labs back, they always have total cholesterol, triglycerides, HDL, and LDL. But if you want to read more, The Great Cholesterol Con, it's one of my favorite books.
Did you say con, Donna? C-O-N-N?
C-O-N.
Yeah. And I know something just about that too is you can have a too low cholesterol. So I don't know if you're going to address that, but some people think, oh, lower is better, but that's not necessarily so.
No, it can actually cause some real issues. And that's what I want to talk about now is there's too low with a question mark, because people will be like, what do you mean too low? Isn't too low good? It's not. We're talking about optimal ranges. In functional medicine, when I give you a range for functional medicine, this is the range where it's just really in a sweet spot, right? And what we do in functional medicine is when it starts getting outside of those zones, then we know that your health is somewhere going off the rails and it needs some help to get adjusted and back on. In Western medicine, the numbers are way out here because they're not going to do anything until you're beyond that scale. And then they're going to look at what medication will bring you back into balance. But it's not really balance. It's just what medication will bring that number into a range that's acceptable. So it's a whole different
point. And to that point, you said so well, that 200 number is an arbitrary number, and people get that in their head. And doctors, you're 205, doctors will put you on a medication.
Yeah.
And that's a Western medicine model. Again, what you're talking about is a functional medicine model based on research and functioning of the body, which we just
Exactly. And I have patients who come in and go, oh, my cholesterol's high and they want to put me on a statin. And I'll be like, well, what is it? And they'll be like 220, and I'm like, you're fine. And they're like, whoa, okay, good. But when it's too low, and I have had patients that it's too low, it's just naturally too low, or it's artificially too low, but it can impair your immune function, and it also can mess up with your hormones. It can mess up your cortisol, your estrogen, your testosterone, and your progesterone. So there is a balance to the cholesterol formula. Now, sometimes things that can cause it to be too low are statins, which are the medication that reduces it. And I can never, as an acupuncturist, I can never tell anybody to go off their medications. They need to talk to their doctor about it. So if you're listening to this and that's your issue and you're on a statin, you can talk to your doctor about it. And also read more about them in The Great Cholesterol Con, because he goes into statins very thoroughly. You might have a too low of a fat diet. Fat doesn't make you fat. Your body needs fat. Your brain needs fat. You also might have a poor liver function, and it could be your gut health and also your adrenals. Many people, though, are, like we said, are concerned with it being too high. That's kind of the common concern. And if it is too high, again, it's not about fat. It's more about the carbs and sugar that you eat, or possibly your liver function. Liver function, cholesterol, the liver filters out the blood of the cholesterol. And if your liver is overwhelmed or tired from whatever functions that it's been doing, because remember, the liver has to do everything. The liver has to filter everything through the body. But if it's not functioning very well, it will just say, you know, I can't handle this cholesterol right now. I'm just going to pump it back into the blood and I'll deal with it later. But the problem is, when you don't ever make the liver function better, it's constantly just putting cholesterol back into the bloodstream, and then your numbers are high. So again, it's not about just taking a statin to lower cholesterol. It's like looking at what is it in your diet that might be causing it, or could it be your liver that needs some help? Another number that comes into that combo of cholesterol numbers is your triglycerides, and they should be between 70 and 100. And the nice thing about this is that if you have high total cholesterol and you have high triglycerides, if your triglycerides are half the number of your cholesterol, then you're in a good ratio. And a lot of times, that's not what doctors look at. They just look at the numbers, and they don't look at the relationship between the numbers. And often people do have triglycerides that are a little too high, and that's usually a diet issue, and it's usually a carb and a sugar issue. Again, the liver. You're going to start to see the same themes coming up here, and that's why I picked these markers to show you how interrelated they all can be. Digestive enzymes, we talked about gut health and digesting your food. I know that this week during the Slim Down, you're taking some digestive enzymes. And if your gut isn't healthy, you might have leaky gut. You also could have incomplete fat digestion, or you might even be on the A1C scale. You might be in the pre-diabetic level, which then can raise your triglycerides. So again, you see how it's all connected.
So Donna, they're not in the actual prescribed 5 days. There's no digestive enzymes. They can certainly add that by talking to their coach, but there's the probiotic. There's the probiotic.
The probiotic, that's right. There used to be the digestive enzyme. Okay, yes, yes. That's right.
There's the probiotic. And I just have to point out the link between sugar. I'm sure many people would not have thought about the link between carb, and we talked yesterday about slow carbs and fast carbs. So the fast carb intake and triglycerides and cholesterol. I bet that's new for so many people, that concept.
That's why I like to pick these markers, because often people think that it has to do with fat, and it's not. It's carbs, refined carbs and sugar, and that's going to throw these numbers off. And if digestive enzymes and liver support, there's the Hepasil, there's the digestive enzymes, there's a lot of things that actually USANA offers that could be added at any point if you feel like you need some help in these areas. Sometimes your triglycerides can be too low. Again, back to the liver. and low fat intake, or you could have something off in your thyroid or your adrenals, because remember, adrenals are connected with the stress and the cortisol response. HDL. Now, HDL is often mistakenly called the good fat or the good cholesterol, and LDL is called the bad cholesterol. And it's not that they're good or bad, they have different functions. Because fat sticks to LDL and it's taken out of the liver, and HDL brings fat back into the liver. So my teacher once described it as it's the school bus who brings the kids to school and the school bus takes them back home. It doesn't mean that the school bus in any one direction is a bad school bus. It just has a different function. And so you need different levels of it. And so I like to look at it that way because, again, it looks at the whole picture and how they need to relate to each other. Your optimal levels of HDL need to be greater than 55. And another marker or calculation you can do is if you take the total cholesterol and you divide it by the HDL, it should be less than 3. So say your cholesterol is 250, but your HDL is 75 or something like that. I didn't do a calculation before I got on this call, but you can see like when your cholesterol's higher, but your HDL is higher, it brings you back down into an acceptable range of less than 3. Some of the factors with lower HDL level, or the things that can make it not so good, are carrying excess weight or smoking, your stress, dieting. When you eat too few calories, that can affect your cholesterol levels, as well as taking steroids and lack of exercise. Now, if your HDL is too low, and this is something that can be common on the test, it could be, again, look at your liver. Do you have fatty liver? Is your liver congested? Does it need some support? Is your diet too high in carbs? Are you not exercising? Or it could be oxidative stress. And I don't know, Karen, if you talk about oxidative stress at all this week, but we talk a lot about, people hear antioxidants. And oxidation of a cell is when it it's like cutting an apple and it turns brown. That's oxidation. And so
I have a feeling Darlene's topic tomorrow is, do I need supplements? So I don't know. I have a feeling she might talk about that.
We'll talk about, right. So keep that in mind, that oxidative stress and a supplement that helps your body with your antioxidants can actually help your cholesterol levels. Another things you can do to improve your HDL is gymnema. That's the herb I like for sugar, bringing down your sugar levels. Exercising 4 to 5 times a week, and Hepacil, that is a supplement that can help your liver and also reduce your carbs and sugar overall. So you can see there's a theme here.
Mm-hmm.
Now, LDL, so that moves fat from the liver to the tissues, and it's broken down in the liver. And remember, it's not a bad thing. It just has a different function. The optimal needs to be less than 120. And lifestyle changes can make a huge impact on your LDL. And that's, again, reducing your sugar and carb intake and exercising more. And you don't have to go overboard on the exercise, but if you can just move, you move your body. I always shoot for at least 20 to 30 minutes, 6 days a week. So, and that feels good to me. And there's lots of ways you can move your body and feel good about it and have fun. That's the biggest point, is to have some fun with that. So that's the cholesterol. Oh wait, one more. So if it's increased, it can be an indicator that you're heading towards insulin resistance. Again, the liver congestion. Oh, here's one I wanted to talk about: exogenous hormones. And that means things that are like toxins in your environment that you put on your skin. Remember, your skin is your largest organ. Anything that you put on your skin shows up in your bloodstream within 20 minutes. So if you have any kind of body care products that are called anti-aging, those have hormones in them. And that's perfectly acceptable with the FDA. But think about it depending on how many products you're using, how many hormones you might be getting. The other interesting way to get exogenous hormones is through partner contact, skin to skin. So example is this woman, a patient, her husband was taking testosterone and she was sleeping next to him at night. And she, through her skin, was absorbing his testosterone. And so she was getting effects from that. So it's interesting to think about ways that you might be exposed to other hormones that you're just not aware of. Also, hypothyroid can cause increased LDL and, again, oxidative stress. And next I want to talk about the thyroid. And I apologize. I know there's a lot of information here, and I'm trying to keep it going so we don't take up too much of your time. But I would just want to kind of give you the big picture of everything that's going on. So thyroid, a lot of people have thyroid issues, and it's really, I just find it so common. And it can be caused from blood sugar issues, from insulin issues, from poor gut health, from heavy metal exposure. I mean, even the fillings in your mouth, food allergies like gluten and soy and dairy, even low vitamin D, stress, cortisol levels, hormone imbalances, and again, your liver. Those can all affect thyroid function. Now, this is how your pituitary is, like your brain's here and your pituitary's here, and this kind of just hangs out, right? So when the pituitary says, okay, thyroid, which is located here, it says, okay, thyroid, I want you to put out some thyroid stimulating hormone, which is TSH. And then that goes out and is T4, which then converts to T3. And T4 is the common prescription for T4 is Synthroid. It's what a lot of people are on when they don't have an adequate thyroid function. T4 is what you get put on pretty regularly. And cortisol is going to block that conversion from T4 to T3 because it has to lose an iodine ion. And remember, cortisol is your stress hormone. So you may have your thyroid functioning just perfectly, but you're not converting to T3 because of your stress. And then that can throw off the thyroid altogether. So that's how it functions. One thing, I thought I had it in my notes, but it's in here somewhere. One of the questions I always ask patients is, have you had a head injury? Because remember, the pituitary hangs in the brain there, right? Just hangs around. If you have a head injury, it's going to get bumped around. If it's bumped around, it may not function later in life. And so I find that sometimes people who have had a head injury, even falling downstairs or off a bicycle or something like that in younger age, as they get older, the thyroid can be not well functioning. And it can lead back all the way to a head injury. So thyroid stimulating hormone, TSH, will show up on your labs, and it should really be between 1 and 2 to be optimal. Now, most labs will have it under 1 and all the way up to 5. That's just a huge range. And when you go out of those ranges, that's when they'll say, okay, your thyroid's not working, let's put you on Synthroid. And then it's Synthroid for life. Or some other kind of T4 hormone replacement. Between 3 and 5 is what I consider subclinical, and then greater than 5, your doctor's going to say hypothyroid. Now, oh, there it is, in my pituitary. Things that can throw it off are your pituitary and a head injury. Your thyroid, if you have nodules, benign nodules are very common in the thyroid area. And again, liver congestion. Some things that can support your thyroid are iodine supplements, helping your liver function, like Hepacil, and also selenium, which are Brazil nuts. And when I was talking about T4 and the conversion, most of it is converted in the 60% is converted through the liver, and another 20% is converted in the gut. So you can see again how the liver and the gut are really important for the overall chain of function in the thyroid. So your T4, you'll see on your labs, and that's usually measured in both total and free T4. So the total should be between 7.5 and 8.1, and free should be 1 to 1.5. And you'll see in your lab ranges that the lab ranges I'm giving you are much more narrow. So they're usually, they not always look at both of them in the labs, but you can always ask. I always ask for a full thyroid panel. That way you're going to get the TSH, the T3, the T4, both free and total. Often people will bring in a lab and it just has TSH. That's like me looking in the trunk to tell what's going on in the engine. I have no idea because it doesn't show me the whole picture. So things that can affect T4 are sugar intake, gluten. Gluten has been shown sometimes to attack the thyroid and the function of the thyroid. PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. Again, exogenous hormones and iodine deficiency. And a lot of people are deficient in iodine. Your T3, oh, and another way that another test that is out there is, you'll see, I mention adrenals often through all these slides, and the adrenals can be tested through a saliva test, and it's an ASI test. And you'll take your saliva 3 or 4 times throughout the day at different hours, specific hours, and then you send away your saliva sample in the test kit, and it'll give you a better idea of what's going on with your cortisol levels and your adrenals. So if you're having any issues with that, that is a test that can be done. Now your T3 is like the gas pedal, right? So your T4 gets converted to T3, mostly in the liver and a little bit in the gut. And they're going to measure both total and free. Often you have to ask for that to get both of them. And totals between 120 and 125, and free is between 3 and 3.5. So again, really narrow range. Now, what I found often is that people will just feel tired, and that can be that their T3 is low. Their body's making enough T4, but it's not converted to T3, right? So again, if you've got poor conversion, it could be because of your gut health and your liver function. So ways you can manage your T3 are, again, your carb and sugar intake, looking at things like gluten and wheat, liver support, because conversion is going to happen in the liver and the gut, iodine supplements. The Cell Essentials does have some iodine in it, but if you've got some thyroid issues, you might want to talk to your practitioner or your coach and talk to them about maybe some iodine supplements. Selenium is also great for just general thyroid health, and eating Brazil nuts. They're high in selenium. Gymnema, again, is one of my favorite herbs for sugar regulation. Reduce your stress. An adrenal tonic, something like an adaptogen that has ashwagandha in it or Rehmannia. Those are really good things. And also make sure you got enough minerals and vitamins like vitamin B12. So your low T3, this is something that I see sometimes in people. They have normal TSH and they have a normal T4, but they have a low T3. So they're not getting that conversion rate. And a lot of times that can be classified as subclinical hypothyroid because they are really tired and they are having signs of low thyroid. And those symptoms are dry skin and hair and nails, loss of the ends of the eyebrows that should come over to here, you know, and you start to lose those. I didn't put this in there, but you have a line completely, not a wrinkle, but it's really amazing. It's a line that goes straight across the neck, right at the thyroid level. That's one of the signs when I actually interview my patients. I'm looking at their face to also look at their neck and their eyebrows, their skin quality, their hair. Are they really tired, or are their hormones off? Poor memory. If they're always cold, just low temperature and not easily getting warm, weight gain and really hard to lose the weight, or frequent headaches or depression. These are all low thyroid symptoms, and often they get pushed off and categorized into other areas that doctors don't say, oh, that must be your thyroid. But it can, all these, not saying that if you have one of these things, it's definitely a thyroid. I'm trying to give you a picture of what it looks like when your thyroid is off, but your numbers might be falling in the normal range. So the last one I'm going to talk about, and I hope we're doing okay on time, is your vitamin D. Now, your vitamin D needs to be between 45 and 65. And the 65, I just finished a new a review through my functional medicine program of functional blood chemistry. And I was really interested because it used to be 85. And recently they brought it down to 65. And she likes people right around 50 to 55. Clinical ranges are going to give you as low as 35 and I don't know, as high as 80 something. But this is the optimal range. And your vitamin D is going to support your immune function. And I share that with you because I was recently reading about vitamin D and COVID and the cytokine storm. And what it does is it actually helps your immune function not overreact to a virus. And that's what's happening with some people. And I'm just using COVID as an example because that's where we are right now and people can understand that. But what vitamin D will do is it will actually help support the immune function's reaction to a virus. So I thought that was really cool. And you need really good gut health to convert your vitamin D from the sunlight. So I thought that was cool too. A lot of people do have low levels. I've seen them as low as 7, and that's the lowest I've seen them. So they're pretty low. They are, in the report that I was reading about COVID, is one of the common signs that they're finding is that people with worse reactions to COVID have lower vitamin D levels. So it's really interesting. There's a lot of studies coming out right now of looking at COVID and viruses from different angles and looking at what is common in people who are getting really sick. Now, elderly people tend to have lower vitamin Ds, or people who's with obesity, a lot of sunscreen usage. But you know, I was out in the sun over the weekend and I had sunscreen on and a hat. So I'm not willing to go without sunscreen. Low cholesterol. If your cholesterol is connected to your vitamin D. So if you have low cholesterol levels, it's going to give you low vitamin D levels. And low calcium levels and fatty acids. And one of those things that can happen is you might get leg cramps. Muscles need calcium and fatty acids. And so if you get muscle cramps, people will often say, well, take some magnesium before bed. But it's actually your fatty acids and your calcium with your magnesium. So again, it's not always just that one little thing that you need to take, but it's like looking at all of it. And fatty acids are things like fish oils and flaxseed. Now, sometimes if your vitamin D can be too high, say you've been thinking, well, I'm just going to boost it up as much as possible and I'm going to get it up to 100 or whatever, right? It can be too high, but when it gets in the over 100 range, you can have problems with your arteries and your kidney and your lungs, osteoporosis, heart attacks, kidney stones, and strokes. So it's serious when it's too high, and so that's why it's so good to keep it in that safe range. So I just wanted to say in conclusion that this is what I'm trying to show you is that, again, it's like you don't look at the one little flower, you can look at all of them in the field, and that's your cholesterol and your vitamin D and your thyroid and your glucose, and they're really all connected. And that's how functional medicine looks at you as a functioning human being. And so when things are going off track, it's how do you get them back on track? And as you can see, there's a lot of themes there. It's gut health, it's liver health, it's your diet, it's your exercise. Those are the things that you have control over that you can actually make a real difference in your numbers. And it's looking at the root cause and not just slapping a Band-Aid on something. So that's everything. I hope it wasn't too fast. And that's it. Karen, do you want me to sharing my screen? I know it's a lot.
Yes, if you could stop sharing your screen so we could see everybody.
Okay.
Wow, take a deep breath. That was a lot. I hope you guys realize what you just got was such a gift to know your numbers in a way that is outside of the traditional medical model, but is in functional medicine. So many, my gosh. So we're right up at the 45-minute mark, but I know Donna would be happy to answer some questions if we could spend a little bit. If you have any questions, so put it in the chat box. Thank goodness this was recorded, because there's so much to go back to with numbers, and it made me realize how this program, I said yesterday to everybody, this program seems like, oh, it's just 5 days. But the things that get out of balancing your blood sugar and practicing self-care, like sleep and exercise and drinking lots of water, there are so many. And each day you're going to find out more and more and more of the benefits of what you're doing here. It's amazing. So Michelle is asking, were vitamin number level optimal amounts drop below 85 because there are issues over 65?
I think that what happens is, as science gains more information, the numbers shift. And they don't shift greatly, but this is one of the new ones that I have seen brought down from 85 to 65. I think that the woman who teaches it with me is a naturopath, and she likes to be conservative, and she likes to see people in that sweet spot. So if they're 85, it's not that you're going to have problems, but she really talked about over 100. And I think what happens is that some people think that, oh, more is better. And so what we're trying to do is get people in more of a sweet spot.
Right. And most people, of course, I mean, here I'm from Australia, outdoor swimming. When I first got my vitamin D tested maybe it was 6 years ago, it was 29. I was shocked.
Yeah.
So remember, Donna said, just because you get sunlight, whether you absorb the vitamin D has a lot to do with your epigenetics, your gut health, et cetera, et cetera. So each of the USANA tablets, so you all know if you're in the United States, is 2,000 IUs of vitamin D. So I actually take now 6,000 IUs of vitamin D to help me be stable at, I think I'm around the 65 mark. And it takes a while to get there, but you also want to do your blood tests fairly frequently, because your D can change different times of the year. So that's really important to just know. Or you can talk to your coach. They'll know a lot to support you as well around vitamin D. This is a good question from David up here. I'm recovering from COVID.
Comment on the vitamin D that there is 2,000 IUs in the Cell Essentials, and then additional tablets are 2,000 each. So that's how you arrived at the 6,000. You get 2,000 with your Cell Essentials.
That's good.
Yes, and some people might say 2,000 is enough, but you don't know unless you know your number. So if you're at 30 vitamin D, which a Western lab test will say is normal, now you know differently. So as well as the Cell Essentials, you'll need to increase your dose, and your coach will help you with there's a website, a vitamin D counselor, Grassroots Health, grassrootshealth.net, that has a calculator, tells you, here's your vitamin D level number now, this is how much you need to dose to get your number higher. So, but your coach can help you with all of that. David says, I think it's David, yes, I'm recovering from COVID. Will this affect my numbers? Hi, David. Welcome. Good to have you here.
No, that's a good question. And I can't say definitely one way or another. There's so every couple of weeks, we're getting new information about how it affects the body, and also how it affects each individual differently. So I really don't know.
Yes, that's a hard one. Everybody is definitely unique. And who knows what happens after COVID? We're still learning. Still learning. Yep. Janet says, I've been eating cantaloupe and watermelon. Are these fruits you can eat? Oh, Janet. Now, I know Janet is this is her 3rd time doing our summer slim down. So she's in the maintenance phase. So we know cantaloupe and watermelon are not part of the 5 days. But she's asking, are these fruits you can eat? Do our supplements have vitamin D in them? Okay, so we answered the supplement question, but cantaloupe and watermelon, higher in sugar.
It's higher in sugar, right.
Never want to eat them alone, I would
no,
think.
again, remember the combo of protein, fat, and carbohydrate. So you always want to think about, am I having a piece of cheese with my apple or some nuts with my fruit? So because you want to slow down the insulin response. You never eat anything sweet, even fruit, on an empty stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like eating a bowl of sugar, really.
Like fruit juice.
Yeah.
Michelle asked, extension to her question, what are problems related to low triglycerides? Are they saying low cholesterol?
Did we not go over triglycerides with the low? I think that so few people have it low. I didn't include it because most issues are high triglycerides, and those happen with those are with diet. But if you give me a second, let me pull out my manual.
Oh, Michelle said hers is very low. It's 44. So.
Oh, so the triglycerides are really low.
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
if it takes too long to answer, I can also answer them. I can also answer individually. So
okay,
if they're, and what I said was with the triglycerides, it may be your liver function, or protein malabsorption, insufficient fat intake, and also look at your thyroid and your adrenals. So those are things that you can look at from that could help with your triglycerides. I'm just looking to see.
While you look there, Donna, I want to give you something someone said just as a compliment. That was amazing, Donna.
Oh, good.
And also loved how you explained how not to categorize good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. I really appreciate that too.
Right, you'll always remember the school bus going to and from the school. They just have different functions.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I see cantaloupe and prosciutto. Sure,
yes,
that's a good one. Because you want some fat and the protein to slow down your insulin response. But as far as I would look at, with the triglycerides, again, it's hard to just say just one number, it's low. I would look at everything that's going on with the cholesterol and the HDL and the LDL and try to put a picture together, but also look at the adrenal function and the thyroid function, and age. Remember, if you're a menopausal woman, your cholesterol is going to be higher.
Thank you. And one more question, because I know we've taken a lot of your time already. What deficiencies cause high uric acid? Uric acid is that uric acid, I know it causes gout. And whenever we have someone with gout, we're usually looking at foods that are high in uric acid.
Yeah.
But she's asking what deficiencies might cause high uric acid.
I don't know. Give me a second. I'll look it up. You can talk about something.
So I see we have, wow, everybody's just stayed on, Donna. I do want to tell you that too. I was in awe listening and taking in all the numbers, and glad we recorded it, because these are the kind of numbers. To be an empowered patient or consumer of healthcare is to have this kind of education. And then when you look at your lab reports, you're going to look at them with a whole different eye. I tell you, This is going to change your life forever.
Yeah. So your uric acid, that is traditionally used as a kidney marker, and elevated levels from excess breakdown or poor detoxification. So was the uric acid decreased or increased? What deficiency?
High.
Oh.
What deficiencies cause high uric acid?
So
I have a couple people that in my family, or one person, a friend, and another person in my family that's had gout recently, and they have high uric acid.
Well, right, and that is one of the indicators, but what you're going to look at is leaky gut function, and liver function, and any kind of things going with the intestines and hyperpermeability, and any kind of kidney disease. So those are that's what you want to look at with And if it's a high protein diet, it can cause it to increase. Oh, and you're also going to look at your lipid function. So again, your cholesterol, because that's going to affect your uric acid. And when you've got your lipids are off, your cholesterol levels are off, it's going to elevate your uric acid. And you often see that in fatty liver disease, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
So keep the questions coming, because you can post on the Reset Facebook page to be able to see, and we can answer those through the Reset Facebook page. And I want to just give a shout out to Darlene, who will be covering tomorrow, Do I Need Supplements? And Darlene, my guess is you will talk about oxidative stress. My guess is that might just come up when you're talking about oxidative stress. And
right.
Yes, and we have, what I did think about today as Donna was talking, and I had some calls with some of my leaders earlier today, is this concept of gut health. This program here, we're talking very much about, of course, sugar, balancing your blood sugar. And as you can see, it's so important. We have another program called Clear the Way. It's a digestion detox program. And I think it's time that we put on a program like this that covered all of those great gut topics. Like, what is a probiotic? What is a digestive enzyme? What is leaky gut? How does the gut health relate to your immune system, especially now? So I'm thinking that we're going to, in the future, not too distant future, but do one of those programs. So just keep that in mind, that might be something that you can join in on. I'll certainly let you know about it on the Reset page. And if you're interested in digestive enzymes, which Donna talked about, talk to your coach, because Usana has a fabulous digestive enzyme that has artichoke extract. And I know my husband and I take digestive enzymes all the time. And I know, Darlene, you might talk about that tomorrow too, is my guess. I'm like she might talk about that because I know you love those. And vitamin D, that's something you learned today, to really know your numbers and then know how to dose up to get your vitamin D level up there. And Donna mentioned Hepacil. Talk to your coach about this. Hepacil is a liver support that helps the detoxification of the liver. And it's got milk thistle and turmeric, L.Ac. It's got ingredients that actually help support glutathione. So that's also a fabulous support. And these are all things you're learning that you can explore, because every time you hear a talk this week, you're going to it's going to open your mind to a whole new world of wellness. And I cannot thank you enough, Donna. This is a gift that we have
such
you.
a pleasure.
Oh my gosh.
I do want to add one more thing. Usana just announced a new supplement that has ashwagandha in it. And you could see a couple times I mentioned ashwagandha and with your adrenals and your cortisol levels.
Yes, a mood support product. So yes, that's brand new. Janet, I saw your hand up.
I just want to agree with you in terms of the enzyme, because I've been taking it and I had what they called irritable bowel, and I have not had any issues whatsoever. So taking that, that you take as well, for the gut has been really great for me. So I just want to sing its praises, because I don't have the problems, the bloat and the gas. So thank you very much, Karen, for putting me on that, because it really has been a lifesaver for me.
Yes, yes. Wonderful to hear that. Wonderful. Well, thank you, everyone. My gosh, what a great, unbelievable. Thank you, Donna. I know people will listen to the recording because it's so valuable. Look at that hand that Michelle said. Oh, look, that's right. We can put up a hand. I love doing that.
You're all welcome, and I'm glad that you found it helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Donna.
So tomorrow we have our Dr. Darlene, same time, same place. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.